Traditionally, during this time of year, the church has tended to focus a lot of energy on reminding us to be good stewards of the blessings we have received. Why? Well, because we are called to be good stewards. Good stewards of those things that are obvious, like the planet, the environment, our bodies. And those things that are not so obvious, God's love, God's message of hope, our faith. Over the years, the church has framed its discussion about these things using terms like gift, abundance, first fruits. However, the church has also used terms like responsibility, obligation. Not in a way that fosters a desire in us to seek and serve Christ in all persons as we profess in our baptismal covenant, but as actions to be taken out of guilt. Guilt that arises from us being told that we are coveting the things that we have while others go in need, and from our lack of personal commitment to doing God's work. Now, while guilt can move us to action, it does so only until that guilt goes away. Think about those TV commercials we see that try to guilt us into giving to a particular cause, whether it's starving children or puppies that might not be with us. Once we write that check, once we make that donation, we're no longer motivated to give anymore. In fact, we become resistant to giving. That's because we take on a new tolerance to guilt. And the next time we are asked to give, it's going to take a whole lot more to make us feel guilty than it did that time. Especially when we become skeptical about the need that is being flaunted before us. Let's face it, we've all heard the church make pleas this time of year, asking us to give more, to do more. When in reality, we all know that the church really only wants us to give to help meet a budget that we know little about, and most of us have had even less to do with. And with that kind of approach, is it any wonder that in the average Episcopal church, less than 1/2 of its parishioners make any type of pledge at all to the work of their parish? Thankfully, we're slightly above average. Not because we have more people than the average parish who are committed to making sure our parish is successful in its ministry, but because we are a parish that cares. That cares about its members and those around us. And because we are a parish that doesn't look backwards, but forwards. Granted, we haven't always been like that, have we? When I got here, I heard some of the stories about the tough times our parish went through. But even in those tough times, we always found a way to make a difference in the lives of those around us. During the search process, a member of the committee once described our parish to me as a beautiful boat floating down a river. The problem, they said, was that it felt like we were just drifting. We were just floating along the way, going with the flow, doing what we could, when we could, with what we had. There's nothing wrong with that. But they went on to tell me that because there didn't seem to be any way to maneuver, they felt like they were seeing, but just not experiencing, the great things that were happening along the shore. Times sure have changed in this place, haven't they? Not only can we now maneuver, towards the opportunity God places along our journey for fellowship and service. But some in our parish might say we've added a motor to that boat to help us get from one experience to the next a little bit quicker. And that's created a bit of a dilemma. In that we are excited about the things that we are doing, yet we miss the peacefulness of just drifting. I suspect the disciples encountered a similar dilemma. Before Jesus came along, they went about their day-to-day activities, doing pretty much what they could when they could with what they had. But one day they heard the message of this wandering prophet. And trusting in his words, they embarked on a life-changing journey, going places and doing things that they never thought might be possible. And in the stories about the disciples, we see not only their amazement at what is happening, amazement about things happening not only through Jesus, but through themselves also. We also hear stories of their frustration. Frustration that arises out of their need to deal with this continuous, never-ending barrage of people seeking help, looking for hope. And Jesus' wild idea to reach out to as many of them as possible. It's no surprise that they yearn for the quiet times alone with their teacher. And it is no surprise that after doing all that they were doing, one day they would ask Jesus, what's in it for us? What do they get for all that they have given up, all that they are doing? And I love Jesus' answer to them. He basically says to them, your reward is being with me. Can't you see there's nothing better than this? Now, we all know Peter. And I can just see Peter hearing Jesus say something like that, rolling his eyes, shaking his head, and saying, yeah, right. But really, Jesus, what's in it for us? Only to have Jesus respond to him saying, Peter, it's not about us. It's about God. And if it's about God, then the greatest reward that we could receive is seeing that others realize that too. One reason the disciples will continue to struggle with this throughout their time with Jesus is because they are approaching the ministry they are doing from the perspective of commitment and challenge. A commitment to Jesus and the challenge before them to herald the coming kingdom. Yet Jesus is approaching his ministry from the perspective of compassion and community. They're trying to do the same thing in two ways that naturally cause conflict. Not because they're incompatible, but because they are different steps, different stages in relational development. That's why some evangelism efforts fall short. For instance, take a group of Christians with a really deep, strong relationship with Christ, who decide to take on the challenge of spreading the good news and reaching out to those who are unchurched. However, when they do so trying to motivate the unchurched to the same depth of commitment that they have, only to see the unchurched begin to fall away. Because they can't commit to someone they still do not know. They, like the disciples, are missing the point Jesus is trying to make. We don't reach out to people from on high, from where we are. We go to them. We go where they are. And then it's not about taking Jesus to them. It's about helping them realize Jesus is already there, caring for them, loving them, standing beside them when they feel the most alone. And as someone gets to know that they're not alone, their focus slowly shifts from me to we. Relationships begin to develop. And as they do, so does a feeling, a sense of community. And as those relationships deepen, as they are drawn closer together, so does one's commitment to their community. That's why, even in the tough times, this parish was able to do what it did. It has a strong sense of community that enables us to fulfill our commitments to one another. However, a community that only looks to itself eventually becomes stagnant. The challenge is to reach beyond ourselves, inviting others to know what we know. That's not always easy. People get comfortable with things the way they are. They like community just as it is. Just think how you would feel if you came into church on Sunday and all of a sudden the incense was burning. We had this our wonderful choir just singing glorious hymns. It would be a little different, wouldn't it? Maybe a little uncomfortable because it takes us out of our comfort zone. Then there are some, not that the choir doesn't sing wonderfully. Let me get that in there. But then there are some who don't want to be seen as forcing their beliefs, their feelings on others, like the deeply committed Christians I described. Yet there are some who can't wait to pull the boat ashore, jump off, and take advantage of the opportunity that exists to invite others to know Christ as they know Christ. This coming week, each of us will be receiving a letter from John Parsons, our junior warden, asking us to prayerfully consider making a financial commitment to help support our community and to grow the ways in which we live out our mission and ministry. If those of you who currently pledge, if everyone who currently pledges were to give just $10 a month more, we could continue to do the great things we do today. If everyone who pledges was able to give $15 a month more, we could take some significant steps towards reaching people where they are and inviting them to know Christ as Christ is revealed in and through our community. The question before us is, what else might we do with each new pledge we receive, with each pledge that exceeds the hopes and dreams we have? How might we be enabled to share God's love and bring hope to those who do not have it? Whatever it is, we can make it happen with God's help and with our generosity. And by working together to a single purpose, that purpose to seek and serve Christ in all persons.